In this scene, we read about Agrippina's actions after the death of her husband, Germanicus. The first sentence is quite interesting, I think, because it begins with an emphasis on her weakness. We're told that she is desessa, which means worn out or tired, and she's worn out for two reasons. One is through her luctu, her grief, and the other is that she is physically unwell. She has a corpora aegro. But despite that, we learn that she's a woman of some substance who wants some action. The very next word that Tacitus gives us is impatiens, impatient, and then he gives us tamen, however. And those two words together tell you that Agrippina is not in fact the weak woman she first appears to be. However, she was impatient, we're told, of anything that could hold up her getting revenge. Now, the very next sentence begins with a verb. And as we know, verbs at the start of the sentence are powerful and put more of an emphasis on the action. This verb also is in the present tense. So it's not just its order in the sentence, which is significant, but it's also its tense. And that present tense is vivid. It draws the reader into the action. And the verb tells you that she boards a ship. This is where she's travelling from Syria to Italy with her husband's ashes and with her children. Then we're told that there is pity from everybody for her position. Miserantibus omnibus, that ablative absolute there, with the word omnibus, which means everyone, emphasises just how universally liked Agrippina and, of course, her husband Germanicus were. Tacitus follows this up with some superlatives. She is a woman of utmost nobility, and we're told that she had a very handsome marriage. That's not referring not only to her husband's good looks, which Tacitus has mentioned before, but also more significantly to the social status of Germanicus. The word venerationem is significant because that means respect. It's the respect of all, omnium, not just the respect of some, but omnium, which she gets. Notice now that Tacitus has used the word all, omnibus, and omnium twice in this passage. Again, another emphasis on Agrippina's universal popularity. In the last line, we're learning that she is carrying her husband's funeral remains, ferales reliquias, which is clearly a sad moment, and the very next word, sinu, in her lap, suggests just how close to her she's carrying this token of sadness, and that she's uncertain now of whether she's going to get revenge. That word ultionis is the last word of the sentence, and perhaps leaves the reader wondering, will that revenge happen or not? And then Tacitus tells us about Piso, tells us that he learns of the news of Germanicus' death. Again, it's present tense, ad sequitur, news reaches Piso on the island of Kos. So that present tense draws the reader in, makes us believe that this is happening before our eyes. Piso's reaction is to rejoice. He gawisus at the news, rejoicing at it, and then he takes two actions. One is caedit victimas, the other is addit templa. He slaughters victims, he goes up to temples. Between these two actions, there's an absence of connectives. So this is an example of a syndeton where Tacitus emphasized the actions all the more by omitting from them any words which could distract the reader from what's actually going on. He also, you will notice, puts the verb before the object, caedit victimas, addit templa, although it's more usual to put the verb after the object. This reversal of typical word order is known as hyperbaton, and it can be used for effect. Here, the effect is to put more emphasis on the actions of Piso, the fact that he is killing sacrificial victims. It's shocking that he should be giving thanks to the gods for the tragedy of the death of Germanicus. In the next sentence, Tacitus uses a pair of words. First of all, non modo, that's one part of the pair, and then he follows that up in the next line with sed etiam. Now this is quite a rhetorical device, because these words mean not only, but also, and taken together, they add particular emphasis on the extent of Piso's and Plancina's reactions. So first of all, not only does Piso behave with immoderate joy, but also, he goes on to say, to talk about Plancina's bad behaviour. Now, there are some key words in this sentence which are worthy of note. One is immoderato. There, Tacitus is very clearly giving his own opinion. He's saying that Piso's joy was immoderate, it was excessive. He should not have behaved like this. Another word is insolescit, which is the verb which describes Plancina's reaction. Insolescit means she is arrogant, or she behaves arrogantly. Now, put together with magis, Tacitus is making his point really clearly. She is behaving more arrogantly, particularly arrogantly. And he goes on then to explain at the end of this sentence what it is that she's done which is so arrogant, which is that she has, far from not putting on mourning dress, that would have been bad enough, she actually changes out of mourning into festal clothing. The word here is litum cultum, happy clothing that she's wearing, which is entirely inappropriate after Germanicus' death. In this passage, we learn about the responses of people at Rome to the news of Germanicus' illness. Tacitus does something he does quite often in his works, which is to make a general comment on human behaviour. He says that people tend to exaggerate news when they hear it at a distance, and they intend to exaggerate it for the worse. That's what he's doing in this sentence when he says the reports were aucta indeterius. In the next line, there are 4 words which are, I think, particularly interesting. First, we have donor, ira, questus. Now, these are interesting because they're all abstract nouns. There is no joining word there between them, so they're an example of a syndeton. There are 3 of them together, and therefore it is an example of a tricolon. And each one of those words is a powerful word which describes an emotion. So it's emotional language. And they're strong emotions too, because these words mean grief, anger, and lamenting or complaints. After that, we have the verb erumpebant, which means literally were breaking out or began to break out. It's an imperfect tense. You can translate it either way. But either way, it's an interesting verb, partly because it suggests that these actions, the lamenting and the anger were going on for some time at Rome. And it's also quite interesting because it's being used metaphorically. Breaking out, think of the word eruption, and you get a sense of just how strong the reaction at Rome was. After that, it's interesting that Tacitus repeats the word ideo here and here. Ideo means perhaps that is why. Now, these words, ideo and ideo in these lines, reflect the thoughts and perhaps the words of the people at Rome. It would have been easier if Tacitus had gone into direct speech here, but he's done almost the same thing. So we're now imagining, after the colon, the thoughts and words of people at Rome, and they're saying, that is why it's not surprising that Germanicus was relegated to the ends of the earth. That is why the province was entrusted to Piso. Now that repetition of ideo is quite idiomatic. It's as though we're actually getting a little insight into the gossip at Rome. I also think that the word nimirum, which means it's not surprising, is also quite important. You can almost imagine the words of the people saying, well, it's hardly surprising that Germanicus was sent that far. if he was going to be so unpopular that Tiberius wanted to bump him off. Now, extremas terras are interesting because it means to the ends of the earth. Well, Syria isn't exactly the ends of the earth, but it's certainly the extreme eastern edge of the Roman Empire. So as far as the Romans were concerned, Syria was the ends of the earth. Relegatum is also interesting because just like the English word relegated, which comes from it, it means he was demoted, he was sent away that far. He'd been sent a very long way from anywhere which was at all important. Before we leave this sentence, I'm going to say a word about the P's in per missam provinciam, little alliteration there. Remember that these are the words and the thoughts of the people, perhaps quite an angry people who are cross at Germanicus' treatment. And by alliterating those P's, Tacitus is perhaps giving us a sense of their spitting anger as they spoke. And now when they do get to hear about the death of Germanicus, they are so angry that they begin to take action. A key word here is the word incendit, which means that the news incensed the people. Literally, that would mean set them on fire. Of course, it's not literal. It's being used, again, as a metaphor. But a notion that the people are set on fire clearly is an indication of just how very angry they were. And they were so angry that they took action. And again, we have repetition. Ante and ante. They took such prompt action that they didn't wait for the magistrates or the Senate to tell them what to do. They took action before any such edict could be made. So ante and ante, that repetition, is rhetorical and it's forceful. So what actions were taken in Rome? Well, there are three of them. First of all, we've got sumpto justitio, which basically means there was a break in legal business. It's a lull, and the courts were closed. The second one is that there was a desertion of the forums. The forum, the marketplace, the centre, the hub of Roman business life was brought to a standstill. And finally, homes were closed up. People were no longer opening their homes for business and for socialising. These three things, not only have we got a group of three, so we have another tricolon, we have a syndeton, because there are no link words between that group of three. And two of them, the last two, are actually constructed in the same way. So we have a verb first followed by a noun, a verb followed by a noun. And when the verb comes first, we call it hyperbaton, which is we've seen that before, which is a reversal of the usual word order where the noun comes before the verb. So why have we got this interesting sort of construction here? Well, its effect is to draw attention to the words. It's to give them some rhetorical force, as though Tacitus really wants the reader to sit up and notice, look, people really did take action and respond in grief after hearing about Germanicus' death. Now after that we have a very short sentence. It's only 4 words long, which is very short by Roman standards, Latin standards. Ubique silentium et gemitus. And you notice that sentence is missing something. It's missing a verb. That keeps it very, very concise, very terse, as though he simply wants to give us a snapshot. Everywhere, silence and groaning. As though that's not enough, he finishes this passage by saying that although they didn't hold back from the outward signs of lamenting, they mourned even more deeply in their hearts. Altius animis maerebant. In this scene, the focus shifts back to Agrippina and her journey from Syria to Italy. In the first sentence, we have 2 clues that this journey was very important to her. One is that she makes it in winter. It is across the Hiberni Sea, the Winter Sea. The other clue is that it wasn't interrupted at all, not in any way, nequaquam intermissa. This is significant because it suggests that Agrippina was travelling to Rome with a real sense of purpose. You probably also notice that we have a number of verbs in this passage which are in the present tense. Apropinquat here is one of them. Then a little bit later on we have complentur, so saying the harbour is filled with a crowd of people who are mourning. We have apropinquat again a little bit later. We also have ut solet, although that's a little bit less interesting. And as we've seen in other places, Tacitus uses the present tense frequently, and that helps to give the passage a sense of vividness and immediacy. Now, when Agrippina arrives, she is met by many friends and very many soldiers who'd served under Germanicus. And not only did they come to meet her, but they ruerunt, which means they rushed to the harbour, which really suggests that we've got a large throng of people who are in a hurry. I think the fact that Tacitus has bothered to give us two adjectives, multi and plurimi, which have got very similar meanings, and plurimi in particular, because that doesn't just mean many, it means very many, it's a sort of superlative. All that combines to emphasise Germanicus's popularity, and therefore Agrippina's popularity as his widow. And the strength of their response is heightened also in the next line. We begin with simulac, which means as soon as the ship was seen. And that clearly suggests a real immediacy of action. People aren't hanging around, they're not holding back, but they're acting straight away. Then we have a pair of words which we've seen before. We have non solum, and then that's answered by sed etiam. And as we've seen before, this is has quite a rhetorical effect, suggesting not only the harbour, but also the walls and the roofs of the city were filled with people mourning. And that non solum and sed etiam really emphasises the sheer numbers of people who were expressing their grief. To take that idea further, we have the word turba, which means a crowd. Tacitus then gives us quite a lot of detail about this scene when he explains that the people were asking amongst themselves, that's regantium inter se here, whether they should receive Agrippina in silence or with speech. It just gives us a sense of what people were thinking and what was going on in that scene. Just want to draw attention to a few words in the last part of the passage. We have the word cunctis, which means everything or everyone. Everyone was disposed to be sad. And then in the last line we have omnium here, which says groaning from everybody. So that's twice in this last sentence that he's used the word everyone, which suggests some sort of universal grieving. It just shows how widespread the grief was when Agrippina arrived in Rome. I think I'll just have one final word about this. The last word of that sentence is gemitus, a powerful word, of course, which means groaning. And so Tacitus ends this little passage on a very gloomy note.